is Enlisted dying? Some sources claim that the player count is dropping, while others say it's steadily growing, most notably the sources from Enlisted moderators such as Major McDonald's and other Enlisted members, or should I say community managers on the forums. But what is the real answer? Today we will analyze the players' numbers, where they come from, and most importantly, how Enlisted can break down its stagnation, because from the player sources, it is stagnating, in the sense that it is not growing, but at the same time it's not decreasing, which is actually an improvement. So without further ado, let's get started with the Enlisted player count. Starting with the numbers, Steam charts has shown that Enlisted player count has been stagnant, no major growth, but also no major drop. For those who are wondering what the heck is Steam charts, the answer is simple. It shows the player numbers for any game on Steam, and in this case Enlisted, and its player numbers. The only issue that you can also say is the fact that Steam charts is only looking at the numbers on Steam for Enlisted, whereas Enlisted also has the Enlisted client, which personally, if you ask me, that's how I play Enlisted, via the Enlisted client. And that is an issue we're going to get back on. But just looking at the Steam charts right now, we see an average of 5,000 players, with the peak of 7,500 players, which is actually not that bad. It has actually gone up from the release date, around 4,800 players, to now two tops of 7,500 players, which is actually not that bad. Of course, this month has shown a decrease, but most months have shown an increase, and as of right now, has shown also a decrease, which is actually something that we should take note about. But once again, there's the catch, which is the fact that Steam numbers don't tell the full story, because once again, Enlisted has its own launcher, it has its own console players, and once again, the sources aren't only not credible, but they could be misleading sometimes, which is why we've gone to our old friend, the first video in which I made about the Enlisted loss of players, and that is Active Player IO. This is essentially a player counting system, and it pretty much shows essentially what Enlisted has been showing, except for the fact instead of 5,000 players, it has a roughly monthly player for the count of January of 550,000 for just January alone. In terms of December, it was also 500,000, which was actually pretty dang decent if you ask me personally. Once again, it has gone up from the release date around 400,000 now to about 500,000, which is actually not that bad. And from the Steam charts and from what we have on the actual Enlisted number, considering this number is also skewed, we do get a general picture of Enlisted is starting to move forwards, but at the same time it's stagnant. For those who like it economic terms, it's called economic stagnation. It's not a good spot for Enlisted, and it's also not a bad spot considering that Enlisted has lost a lot of players after the merge and after a lot of crazy stuff that has gone with Enlisted. Enlisted is actually starting to climb back. Remember, I posted a video about how Enlisted lost 75% of the player base, which isn't true according to Enlisted community managers such as Major McDonald's. At the same time, charts do show something else, and from what we've seen with reports on the ground, I do think there is some basis of some players leaving. Notice how I say some of the players leaving, because I do trust some of the Enlisted community managers such as Major McDonald's. All respect to him. But what I'm trying to say is the fact that Enlisted has been losing players since, well, before the merge. Almost guaranteed. That is a guaranteed part. It appears that Enlisted is growing slightly back up, but it's still stagnating. And the entire point of the Steam release, once again, was to get Enlisted on its back footing and essentially get more players. And this leads to the question of why is Enlisted stagnant? And the issue is actually pretty simple. There are a few issues such as monetary issues, aka the premium squads are just way too hard. And for newer players, the grind is, well, pretty painful. Although I do have to say the fact that comparing to War Thunder, the grind is much, much better. At the same time, also comparing to War Thunder, most people would just say this is Enlisted is just War Thunder with Infantry, which is not entirely not true. Also, not to mention the fact that the new player experience isn't really helping the game, and most players essentially just leave after the first game. And this is essentially where we leave to the problem of how Enlisted can fix this, and it is actually very simple. Like I said, Enlisted needs to focus on marketing. When I mean market more, I don't mean like just paying more creators to do more videos, which although it has been making Enlisted better, it also means that Enlisted should also essentially, well, market itself and help new players in the game. For example, War Thunder does a very good system in which it describes and explains essentially every tank and almost every vehicle in the game right now. Enlisted hasn't done that yet. As a matter of fact, Enlisted has barely made an introduction of how to help the game. Of course, if you search on YouTube, you can get tons of content creators who do that job, but Enlisted should be more helpful towards the player base, not to mention the fact that as of right now, now, the tutorial completely sucks. Like, I'm not gonna joke about this, the tutorial is not really helping the newer players. Not to mention the fact that Enlisted is very slow when it turns out content, and when I mean content, I mean major content. For example, the Pacific campaign, we still haven't gotten some maps as Iwo Jima, Okinawa, we've gotten Burma, which is amazing if you ask me, but Enlisted essentially does have to have a lot more content drops quickly, and it's not an issue about whether Enlisted can work fast, but what player expectations are up to. Not to mention the fact that when Enlisted drops something, a lot more players either come back to play or are once again interested into the game. And Enlisted has done a pretty good marketing campaign. Once again, although the marketing campaign is very limited in some areas, needless to say, Enlisted should focus on fixing their issues and honestly fix some of the bug issues and AI improvements which are gonna cause some players to lose, and well, there goes players retention. But overall, Enlisted is not dying. That is a fact that I can officially confirm to everyone now, which is pretty happy if you ask me. On the other hand, Enlisted, you're stuck in a limbo because Gaijin has made it so that Imperially Enlisted is growing but at a snail's pace, which is not supposed to be a pun. That said, Enlisted can definitely fix this, and as a matter of fact, I do think Enlisted can fix this very, very quickly. It just requires, well, hard work, like everything in life. But what do you guys think? Has Enlisted been doomed? Which, of course, it's not. But do you think Enlisted can grow and have a brighter future? Because as of right now, in my personal opinion, it already has a bright future. Without further ado, have a great day, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.